Hi, I'm Ben. Please join me as I read A Dream of Fire for English learners. Today, we're going to be including chapters 1, 2, and 3, so we have the whole story in one video. So relax, enjoy the story, and improve your English listening and comprehension skills. Thanks for watching. A Dream of Fire, Chapter 1. Can Dreams Come True? Jen wanted to hit her boyfriend. Thanks to him, everyone sitting at the table was looking at her. She gave Ben a dirty look. He just smiled at her in response. Sarah, Jen's best friend, looked at Jen with a small smile. Jamie, who was Sarah's boyfriend and Ben's best friend, had a look of shock and curiosity on his face. Eric and Lisa were friends with all of them, and they seemed curious too. Why does Ben have to tell everybody about my dreams? Jen thought. Finally, she turned to her friends and said, Yes, it's true. She gave Ben another dirty look and began explaining. I sometimes have dreams about unimportant things, and the dreams come true the next day. It's almost always about 6 hours after I wake up. It's been happening for as long as I can remember. But it's always just for really stupid little things. Never anything important. Really? Like what? Eric asked. Well, when I was 4 years old, I had a dream about a spoon falling off a table and making a loud sound on the floor, Jen said. The next day, my father was giving a speech at a party, and someone dropped a spoon on the floor. Of course, it made a really loud sound and startled everybody. The dream came true. The group of friends laughed. They were really surprised. Jamie looked at Jen carefully and then said with a smile, But that seems like more of a coincidence than anything. That's what I thought at first, Ben interrupted, speaking quickly with excitement. But then Jen told me her other dreams, and I started believing. Then I tested her and saw it actually happen. You tested her? Jamie asked. How? A few months back, I waited until she woke up and made her tell me the last dream she remembered, Ben said. She told me she had dreamed about someone sneezing 17 times and everyone laughing about it. Then I waited until 6 hours later, and sure enough, while we were eating lunch, some woman across the room started sneezing. If it had only been a couple of sneezes, I don't think anyone would have noticed. But the woman just kept sneezing and sneezing, so I started counting. She sneezed exactly 17 times. When she was done, the whole restaurant started laughing. It was so funny. Yeah, and the poor woman was so embarrassed that she got up and left the restaurant, Jen said, hitting Ben on the shoulder. Oh, stop it, Ben said. I think it's amazing. I like to tell people about it. It's not a party trick, Ben, Jen said. You know I don't like to talk about it with anybody. People hear about it and they think I'm weird. I don't think it's weird, Lisa said. I think it's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, me too, Eric said. Me too, Sarah said shyly, smiling at Jen. I've always wanted to be able to do that. Have your dreams ever not come true? Lisa asked. All the time, Jen said. The really scary ones never come true. Or any time I dream about something really big happening, like winning the lottery or something. The only dreams that come true are the unimportant ones. It's really annoying, honestly. There was a long pause as everyone thought about what Jen had said. Then Jamie spoke up. But couldn't you use it to predict the future or something? He asked. Jen shook her head before anyone could say anything. It doesn't work like that, she said. I never know if a dream is going to come true until right before it happens. But how do you know these dreams come true after 6 hours? Jamie asked. When I was 10, I started keeping a journal, Jen said. I would write about my dreams and then make a note if they came true. I started realizing that they came true around the same time of day. When I did the maths, I realized it was 6 hours. Well, 6 hours, 17 minutes, and 29 seconds, to be exact. Wait, Ben said. You never told me that. You know exactly how long it takes for a dream to come true. I thought I did when I was 10, Jen said. But that was a long time ago, and it wasn't really a scientific experiment or anything. The group laughed again. Jamie looked at Jen with a smile. So, there's no real way to tell the future? He asked. Nope, Jen said. Sometimes something will trigger a memory from a dream. That tells me the dream is going to happen. But the most warning I've ever had was about an hour ahead of time, and that only happened once. Most of the time, I just get a funny feeling about 5 minutes before it happens. Then I just kind of sit and wait for it to happen. Like I said, it's a bit annoying. I can't really control anything about it. The silence returned, and Jen smiled at the looks on her friends' faces. She knew they would be watching her from now on to see if her unusual ability would show itself. Ben meant well, but he didn't understand. It really made her uncomfortable to have people watching her and wondering about her dream thing. It was just weird. The dinner party broke up shortly after that, and everyone went home. Ben usually stayed later after a party to talk, but he couldn't that night. He had to work early the next morning, and his job site was on the other side of town. He was an electrician, and he'd recently been hired to work in a new office building on the north side of the city. Jen was really proud of Ben, and she was excited about how their relationship was developing. They had been dating for over a year now, and she had fallen deeply in love with him. She was certain he felt the same for her. That night, as she got ready for bed, she thought about how amazing it would be to have Ben as a husband. As she fell asleep, she quietly hoped that the special moment when Ben proposed would come soon. Chapter 2. A Bad Feeling. Jen woke up the next morning in a sweat, with a strange ringing sound in her ears. The dream she'd had was one of the worst she could ever remember. Ben had been caught in a fire at the building where he worked, and he couldn't find a way out. He and 2 others were trapped in what looked like a storage cupboard. The smoke and heat from the fire had been terrible, And then there had been a loud metallic ringing sound as something heavy had collapsed on them. Jen gasped for air and tried to calm her racing heart. She looked at the clock. It said 7:05 a.m. Ben was probably already at work, but she wanted to call him anyway. "Hello," Ben answered after the second ring. "Hi, it's me," Jen said. "I just wanted to hear your voice. You okay?" "I'm great, babe," he said. "Just getting ready to start the day. This is a big job, which is good. I'm going to need some extra money pretty soon, if you know what I mean." Jen's heart jumped. Had he just suggested that he needed money to buy her a wedding ring? She smiled. "I love you, Ben," she said. "I love you too, Jen," he said. "I'll see you after work, okay?" "Okay," she replied. "Be safe today." "Always," he said, and then hung up. Jen put the phone down and tried not to think about the dream from last night. It wasn't the first time she'd had a bad dream, and she knew her bad dreams never came true. Jen got out of bed and began getting ready for the day. An hour later, she was drinking her coffee and driving to work. She was still thinking about the dream. Ben's new job was in a building on the other side of town from the clinic where she worked as a nurse. It took an hour to get through traffic from one side of the city to the other, so there was no way she could check up on Ben until later that evening. She tried not to think about the dream, but she couldn't help but worry. At the clinic, it was flu season, so there was a steady stream of children with fevers that morning. Jen had no time to think about dreams or anything else. When her lunch break came at noon, she was glad for a moment of peace. A couple of the other nurses were in the break room too. They were all simply enjoying the silence, until Sherry dropped a spoon she'd been using to eat her soup. It made a loud, metallic ringing on the table. The ringing sound triggered one of the strongest sense memories Jen had ever experienced. It was the same sound she'd woken up with in her head that morning. The same sound that had come with that terrible dream of Ben being in a fire and something collapsing on him. Jen looked at the clock. It said 12:07 p.m. She thought back to the time on the clock when she'd woken up. 7:05 a.m. Her bad dreams had never come true, but the feeling Jen had deep in her heart at that moment wasn't something she could ignore. What if this was the one time that a bad dream was going to come true? What if this was why she'd had so many dreams all her life? What if all the dreams had been building to this moment? The clock now said 12:08 p.m. Jen did some quick figures and realized she had 1 hour and 14 minutes to do something. She jumped up, grabbed her bag, and rushed out of the break room. Jen, one of the other nurses, called after her. "Is everything okay?" Jen ignored her and ran out of the building to the car park. When Jen got in her car, she dialed Ben's number with one hand while she started the car with the other. His phone rang and finally went to voicemail as she drove down the street. "Ben, it's me," Jen said quickly, weaving through traffic. "Call me when you get this, please." She hung up just as she turned onto the motorway. It was lunchtime, so traffic was a little heavy. but it was not as bad as rush hour at the end of the day. Still, it would likely take a full hour to get to Ben's building. Jen looked at the clock in her car. It said 12:16 p.m. She picked up her phone again and dialed Ben's friend Jamie's number. He picked up after the third ring. "Hi, Jamie. It's Jen," she said. "Hi, Jen," he replied. "What's up?" "Have you heard from Ben this morning?" she asked. "No," he said. "Last time I talked to him was last night. Why? What's up?" "I hope nothing," she said. "He just didn't answer when I called him at work just now." "Ha, I wouldn't worry about it," Jamie said. "That building he's working in has pretty thick concrete. He probably doesn't get any phone service." "You're probably right," Jen said. "All the same, if you hear from him, can you let me know?" "Sure," he said. "Everything okay, Jen? You sound like something is wrong." Jen couldn't decide whether or not to say anything to Jamie about her dream. After a long pause, she decided to be honest. "I had a dream that Ben was caught in a fire in that building," Jen said. "I know I told you last night that my bad dreams don't come true, but this one is really bothering me. And now I can't get hold of him, and I'm freaking out a little bit." "Whoa," Jamie said. "I can see why. Okay, well, huh? Huh? That's all you have to say? Jamie, you live on that side of town." "Yeah, okay," Jamie said. "Right, I'll go over there and see if I can find him." "Thanks, Jamie," Jen said. "I hope it's nothing." "Me too," Jamie said. "Don't worry. He'll be okay, Jen." Jen hung up and looked at the clock again. It was 12:22 p.m. The traffic wasn't bad, and Jen was able to keep moving for the first 30 minutes of the drive to Ben's building. Then, about 5 miles from the building, the traffic stopped completely. She tried Ben's phone again, but there was still no answer. She texted Jamie, but he didn't answer right away. She looked at the clock. It was 12:54 p.m. She had 28 minutes before the dream might come true. Up ahead, the next motorway exit looked clear, but she didn't know if taking smaller roads would be faster or slower. She took a chance and pulled over and used the edge of the road to get to the exit. At a red traffic light, she put the address of the building into her car's navigation system. A map appeared on the screen showing the new route. However, it twisted and turned its way through back roads. As the light turned green, Jen raced off as fast as she dared. She got stopped at the roadworks at one point, but she made it through and finally arrived at Ben's building. She looked at the clock. 1:12 p.m. She had 10 minutes. She ran towards the door to the lobby. As soon as she walked in, she could smell it. Smoke. Her heart sank, and she began to panic. It was real. There was a fire. Her dream was going to come true. Chapter 3. Rescue. Jen stood in the lobby. She didn't know what to do. There was actually a fire in Ben's building. He was in danger. Suddenly, she heard someone yelling her name. She turned to look, and Jamie ran up to her. "Jamie," she said, relieved that he was there. "It's true. My dream is true. Do you smell the smoke? Yes, but calm down, he said, leading her out the building. I got stuck in traffic and just got here a few minutes ago. I ran around the back of the building and there's fire and smoke coming out of the top windows. I called the fire department and they'll be here soon. Don't worry, I'm sure they'll get him out. At that moment, the fire alarms began to blare. What took them so long, thought Jen. The people had to get out. Ben had to get out. Jen looked at her watch. 1:13 p.m. The fire department won't get here soon enough, she said. Ben has less than 10 minutes. Calm down, Jen, said Jamie. We need to think. What exactly do you remember from your dream? I don't know, cried Jen. Come on now, think. Okay, she said. He was stuck in a storage cupboard or something. That's it? Nothing else? Jen closed her eyes and tried to remember what she had seen in her dream. A picture of an electricity box on the wall formed in her mind. She remembered the number 3 at the top. There's an electricity box in the cupboard. It has the number 3 on it, she said, opening her eyes. That's it. Jen looked at Jamie with fear in her eyes. 3rd floor. It's got to be the 3rd floor, Jamie said. Come on. Jen and Jamie raced through the front doors into the lobby. Just then, a huge group of people came running out. Jen and Jamie were pushed back, away from the building. Finally, a break in the stream of people opened and they rushed in. Jen ran for the elevators, but Jamie pulled her towards the stairwell. The elevators won't work during a fire, he said. The stairwell is better. When they opened the stairwell door, another crowd of people pushed them back. Jamie stumbled and fell with a yell. Jamie, are you okay? Jen called. My ankle, he shouted. I hurt it pretty badly. As the crowd running down the stairs thinned, Jamie tried to climb the stairs, but after one step he fell to the ground again. Ah! He exclaimed. It hurts. It's no good, Jen. I'll never get there quickly enough. You'll have to go on your own. What? Go. You can do it. I'll get help. Jamie pushed Jen towards the stairs and then limped back towards the lobby, yelling, Help! As he went. Jen gave him one last look and raced up the stairs. She looked at her watch again. 1:18 p.m. Ben had 4 minutes. When Jen reached the 3rd floor, she opened the door. Thick, black smoke filled the hall. She dropped to her hands and knees and started crawling. The smoke and heat were thick, and she could hear a roaring sound above her. She kept going, tears coming from her eyes, searching frantically for any sign of a storage cupboard. Moments later, Jen found the cupboard she was looking for. It was almost all the way down the hall from the stairwell. She pounded on the door. Ben, she yelled. Ben, are you there? Are you in there? Jen, Ben replied. What are you doing here? Never mind. Get us out of here. I'm with the building managers. We're stuck. The security lock turned on when the fire alarms went off. Okay, hold on, Jen said, looking at the lock on the door. It was one of those top-level electric security locks. Jen had no way of opening it. She looked around for something to break the door. At last, she spotted an axe in a firebox on the opposite wall. She ran to the box, broke the glass, and pulled out the axe. The smoke was very thick now, and she began coughing. Jen crawled back to the cupboard as quickly as she could. She took a deep breath, stood up, and slammed the axe into the door handle once, twice, 3 times. She kept hitting the door over and over again, but nothing was happening. Jen started to panic. She slammed the axe down one more time, and suddenly the door handle fell off. She dropped the axe and slammed her shoulder into the door. It opened. She fell to the floor, but a moment later was picked up by Ben's strong arms. "I've got you," he said. "Well done, Jen, but how?" Jen looked down at her watch. Through the smoke, its light shone up at her. 1:21 p.m. "Not now, Ben," she yelled. "We only have 1 minute." She dropped to her hands and knees and quickly began crawling to the stairwell. Ben and the 2 building managers followed closely behind. Within seconds, they heard a loud metallic ringing sound and then a crash. The roof of the storage cupboard had collapsed. The group continued to crawl down the hallway, but at this point the smoke was too thick to find the stairwell. Jen cried out in panic. "I can't see," she yelled. "I can't see where to go." "Me neither," replied Ben. Then, suddenly, Jamie's voice called out from below. "I can hear you," he said. "I'm in the stairwell. Follow my voice." Jen crawled towards Jamie's voice. The smoke was so thick and she could barely breathe, and the heat was burning her along her back and legs. It felt like she was on fire. At last they found the stairs. She coughed and coughed, but as she eased down the stairs, one hand after another, there was less and less smoke. It seemed to take forever to get down the stairs. Finally, the group made it to the bottom. Jamie was waiting for them with a group of firefighters in oxygen masks, guiding people out of the building. One of the firefighters picked up Jen and carried her through the lobby and outside. She looked over her shoulder and saw Ben being helped by another firefighter. Jen and Ben were left at an ambulance. They were each getting an oxygen mask when Jamie limped over and sat down beside them to wait for help with his ankle. After a few minutes of deep breaths, Ben took off his mask and looked around. "What were you guys even doing here?" he asked. Jamie looked at Jen and smiled. "Jen called to tell me she had a dream about a fire and you were in it," he said. "We decided to check up on you." Ben looked at Jen, who smiled weakly and reached for him. He wrapped her in his arms and said, "Well, I'm glad you did." Then he looked at Jen. "I love you, Jen," he said, wiping some dirt away from her face. "You saved my life, and now I know for sure that I want you to be a part of that life forever. Will you marry me?" It took Jen a second to realize what Ben had just said. When she did, she pulled away and looked at him in surprise. "What?" she said. "You want to propose now? Look at me," she exclaimed, pointing at her dirty clothes and face. "This is supposed to be a special moment. This is a special time. I can't believe..." Jamie and Ben started to laugh. Jen looked up, and then she couldn't hold back her laughter either. She stopped talking and smiled at the love of her life as she went in for a kiss. A second later, they were both coughing and rushing to put the oxygen masks back on their faces. Then, Jen briefly lifted the mask from her face and looked at Ben. "Your timing is terrible," she said with a smile. "But yes, I will marry you." Thank you for listening to this story. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it exciting and interesting, and I hope that it was beneficial to your English practice. If you'd like to see more or hear more, please press the subscribe button, like the video, and leave a comment with any questions. Also, I'm a registered English tutor on Preply, so you can check the description box of this video and you can book a trial lesson with me if you'd like to have private one-to-one English lessons. All the best and see you next time. Bye.